Hello, I'm Ronnie Eldridge. Welcome to Eldridge and Company. Last month, for a few days, public school students across the state did not go to school. They did what's called opt-out to protest the Common Core. Maybe you're like me and you're not really sure what this policy is and why it's controversial. Dr. Carol Burris, a distinguished educator and an award-winning principal, is an outspoken critic of Common Core, and I'd like to know why she is. She's my guest today.
Hi, Ronnie.
Hi. You're a very experienced educator.
Yes, this is my 25th year in education. I was a Spanish teacher at the middle school level and the high school level, an assistant principal, and now this is my 15th year as principal of Southside High School.
And you've been given all kinds of awards, the outstanding principal of the state, the outstanding principal here, and everything else, right?
Right.
And your school is terrific. You're very proud of it.
Absolutely.
And you don't have the Common Core, or do you?
Well, it's getting phased into the high school. The Common Core began more in grades K to 8, and now next year, the Common Core and the Common Core Regents exams. Yes.
And when I said it's a policy, it's really not a policy, is it?
No, the Common Core is, it's a set of standards, and what had happened about 2010 is when it was put into effect. A group of, it came actually from the governors who had an idea, which was not a terrible one, which is why don't we develop a common set of standards, because our state standards are so different one from the other. But instead of really getting input from teachers and principals and parents, there was a lot of test makers that were involved in the process, as well as other groups, and they quickly put together a set of standards. And then what happened was race to the top. And as part of getting
race to the top is a government.
That's right. That's from the U.S. Department of Education.
Is not.
The Common Core is not.
Right.
But what happened with Race to the Top was it was a contest among the states. And in order to win money, right, for your state to get the money, you had to do certain things. And one of those was to adopt a rigorous set of standards, and the Common Core was automatically considered to be a standard that was acceptable.
But you could have a different set of standards.
You could have a different set of standards, but they had to be approved. There had to be an approval process.
It's easier to go to Common Core.
It was much easier to go to Common Core. And at the same time, what they did was they also developed two set of national tests, one called PARC, the other one called Smarter Balanced. And what it felt like to everyone out in the field was, even though no one said it, what the intent was to create national standards and then to create national tests in order to be able to compare one state against another in terms of performance, as well as the students in each state against another.
So indirectly, establishing the standards really dictates the curriculum.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why, you know, I'm always puzzled when people say, well, it's only standards, it's not curriculum. The truth of the matter is these are the most detailed standards I've ever seen. They're far more detailed, for example, than the standards of Finland. And it drives curriculum, without a doubt. And then the tests, of course, drive everything even more, especially when they have high stakes attached to them, as they do in New York.
And what happens if a kid doesn't do that well on the test? Do they don't get promoted? Is that one of the goals, is not to promote children who have not reached the standards?
Well, it depends. For example, in the state of Mississippi, that's happening right now with third graders, where large numbers of third graders are going to be retained. And that, to me, is very, very frightening, because we know retention doesn't work. We know from research that what it really does at the end of the road is produce a dropout. And then when you think about a state like Mississippi, you know the high retention rates are going to be among children that are poor, children that are less advantaged, more likely children of color, because very often they're the children of poverty. And so a lot of bad policies happen. Now, in New York State, the legislature last year didn't ban retention based on performance on the test, but it said that it could not be the only factor in high-stakes decisions about kids. It could not be the predominant factor, but it still could be used.
Now, the tests really cover two areas. One is language arts.
Yes.
What does that entail?
Language arts are Reading and writing.
Reading and writing.
Right.
And the other is mathematics.
And the other is mathematics.
So there isn't anything for social studies, history.
No, there are standards in social studies, but the tests themselves, 3 to 8, are ELA and math, and that's determined by the federal government.
So while the tests are there, but it still doesn't take more than a period, does it, at a child's schedule, a daily schedule? They have math and they have English.
Oh, has happened in many schools is that
They get
ELA has become double period. Math has become double period.
At the cost of?
At the cost of art, at music, at the cost of social studies. You know, and I hear those stories all the time where parents will go, science is being neglected in many places because there are so many high stakes attached to the test. The teachers are evaluated by the test. The school can be closed if test results are poor. So there's tremendous amount of pressure. And, you know, it's almost as if someone said, you need to earn, Ronnie, $1 million. And that's all we care about is you earning $1 million. And you need to do it quickly. Well, you might form a legitimate business and do really well. Or you might rob a bank, right? Or you might engage in some shady deals. Or, you know, you might borrow money from somebody else. When all you're looking at is the outcome. Exactly. And the pressure is great. A lot of bad things happen to kids.
It was put together by the National Governors Association and then with, you said, testers and the foundations?
Yes.
And corporations?
Well, their foundations were definite. Some nonprofits were involved. Certainly, probably the biggest, most public supporter of the Common Core standards is Bill Gates.
Yeah. So, but the ultimate goal is, they say, that if you do this and you pass this and your ratings are good, the graduate will be able to either go to work or go to college, right?
Correct.
It's to make, it seems to me in a way, it's like these groups got together and said, we don't want to train people anymore when we hire them, so we want them to be better educated, and this is the way we're going to do it. It also seems to me it runs parallel to what critics are saying is happening in colleges, that they're becoming too career-oriented, that they're losing the humanities and the subjects that we used to think was what a purpose of college was. It was for a general education.
Right, to produce a well-rounded citizen.
Yeah.
This whole movement almost reminds me of the turn of the last century, right? Where business was driving it, and we had almost, our education system was almost a sort and select, you know, machine. And if you look at the people or listen to the people carefully who are pushing this, they talk about it. We want better prepared workers, right? We want them out of the gate to be prepared. Yeah, and I think every child has the right to a wonderful, enriched education because it's an important goal in and of itself.
Does it have any provision for special sessions with a child or remedial?
Well, if a child does
tutoring.
Yeah, if a child does poorly on the test, then you are obligated to provide remediation. It's called academic intervention services. But that has become more complicated because as the tests have become more difficult, more kids need academic intervention services. So what are they not getting? They're not getting art, they're not getting music, they may not get social studies. And if the tests are wrong, if they're calibrated wrong, if the Common Core standards are not right, lots of kids are being deprived of a lot of important parts of their education.
And who funds this? This is funded through state education departments and then down through local school districts?
Well, yes.
So is the money there to support a school district that's teaching this?
Well, your local taxpayers are paying for it. Some districts got Race to the Top money. It was a very, very small amount of money. Our district rejected it because we realized, one, we would be doing things that we really didn't want to do. And the second was, in order to implement it, it would cost more than we got. So it's really up to the individual schools and districts to follow the standards.
How they do it.
Yeah.
So the tests are very difficult, aren't they?
Extraordinarily difficult.
And it's a whole new way of giving tests.
Well,
not that I mind.
Yeah.
You have thoughtful tests. But I was looking at some of the math, and of course I'm an old-fashioned person who learned math the other way. Is there a reason to teach math the way they're suggesting?
It's hard to say. I'm not a mathematician. I'm not a math teacher. They're attempting to teach math similar to Singapore math, trying to go for deeper understanding, composing and decomposing numbers. But what I'm hearing from my teachers who have kids who are in the elementary school and from my assistant principals who have kids in the elementary school, that it's extraordinarily confusing. And kids are getting frustrated and they're saying, I know the answer, just let me do it. Just
they
let
don't
me
have to
do
go through
it.
the process.
Not having to go through the process. Yeah.
Now, you were a Spanish teacher, so
I was.
Language arts doesn't include another language?
No. And it's a shame, really, because, time is becoming squeezed. And a lot of the wonderful programs that we had to start elementary foreign language or elementary foreign language in the elementary grades, a lot of schools are walking away from those. They don't have the time anymore because everyone is so worried about preparing kids for tests that were designed for 30% of all kids to pass.
So can schools opt out?
Well, schools can't opt out.
No, they can't.
But
Only
parents,
the students can.
But the parents can opt out.
So in New York, does every school have to follow the Common Core?
Yes.
That's now state law.
Yes. Well, it's
Department of
regulation.
Education.
Yeah, it's Department of Regulation. Public schools. Private schools are free to do what they want to do.
But do they still take regents?
Some private schools do and some don't.
But public schools?
Public schools still take Regents
in
exams.
addition to these tests?
But they're changing. They're becoming Common Core Regents exams.
I see. So that's more thought. So your school, you have advanced placement classes and
International Baccalaureate.
Yeah. And what percentage of your students do you think are able to either go on to college or go to work?
Oh my gosh.
The whole school?
Yeah. We send probably about 96-97% to college every year. And we follow them closely to make sure that they're successful. What we started doing quite a few years ago was we started giving everybody the best curriculum we had to offer. We stopped sorting kids by test scores and allowed everyone to take the rich honors curriculum. So, for example, all of our kids take IB English. The vast majority of our kids, upwards of 80%, take International Baccalaureate Math. So we have a really good, successful, rich program, and this is going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So you're retiring this year.
I am. I'm taking early retirement.
So somebody else is going to have to implement the Common Core in the high school.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. My assistant principal, and he's wonderful.
Yeah.
But it really got, Ronnie, what happened to me was I made the decision April 13th. And I wasn't planning.
Was that before
leaving.
The kids opted out or during?
That was after. That was after the opt-out. But it was about the time that the legislature passed the budget, which said that teachers would be evaluated by test scores, 50%. They deny it. They say it's not that. There were two factors leading to one evaluation score. You don't need Common Core math to know that that's 50%. And I just, in good conscience, every time I thought about it, I felt sick. And I said, I just can't do this anymore. I cannot come back and do this to a faculty that I love so much and pretend it's a fair and valid evaluation when it's not.
So interesting. One of the things I read that they'd like to accomplish, or they think in establishing Common Core, is that kids come from different kinds of backgrounds, and they're going to make them more equal by teaching language arts that doesn't bring in your past experience. Is that what it is? Is that a safe way of saying?
Yes.
Reading specialists say when you teach a kid reading, you want to have them identify things in their own life to follow it, right?
Absolutely.
And Common Core is just the opposite.
It's the silliest thing I ever heard. How can you ever read text without thinking about it, how it connects to your life, or how it connects to the experiences that you have? You want to do that. You want to activate prior knowledge, and you want to teach children how to do that. It is bizarre. it almost assumes that the reader does not think. And isn't that a sad thing to say about children?
Yes, it is. But they're also implementing Shakespeare, things that are really quite difficult, I think, to understand without some introspection or some, I don't.
Yeah, and but part of what's happening too, when you look at some of the Engaged New York modules, for example, is that you see a lot of that rich literature, because our kids read a Shakespeare play every year, becoming minimized. Sometimes there are excerpts. And what's coming into the English class is what's called informational text. So, for example, if I followed the 9th grade module curriculum of New York State, our students would not be reading To Kill a Mockingbird, Red Sky at Morning. They would be reading, and I kid you not, Wizard of Lies, The Life of Bernie Madoff. Now, I mean, I don't know, a tale of somebody who steals from the rich. I mean, I'm not quite sure what the purpose of that is.
That's really one of the readings?
That is one of the readings. And I don't want that for our kids. Literature is such an amazing experience. You learn about the lives of people that are so different from your own. You learn empathy. You learn how to dream. To see literature minimized, to put in dry informational text in an English language arts class makes no sense to me. A little bit, yeah, makes some sense. But to do it to a point where if you look at the 9th and the 10th grade modules, you're looking at nonfiction being about 60% or more of what kids are reading in language arts class.
What other books? Can you think?
Oh, I'm trying to think of some of the, to be honest with you, I just ignore it, Ronnie. I'm just not going to have our students do it.
Right.
So
that, in a way, that's how they learn history? If they're going to read a biography or...
Yeah, well it makes sense to read biographies.
Yeah.
We've always incorporated that. And then there's reading in social studies classes as well. But this is just such a smaller piece for literature. I believe in English language arts classes that at least 75% of what kids should read is literature.
So once now the New York State is going to take in the test results, are a lot of teachers going to leave the system? Is it going to help develop more charter schools?
Yeah.
Charter schools are excluded from the Common Core or not?
Well, charter schools teach the Common Core and they give the tests. They do not have to follow the New York State teacher evaluation system. Charter school principals are free to evaluate their teachers as they see fit. What I'm seeing is a terrible discouragement. I'm not the only person who's retired. Maybe I'm the most vocal person who's retired. But I've seen some wonderful superintendents also leave this year, and they're all saying, we've had it, we've had enough. You're seeing now enrollments in schools of education dramatically drop, including here in New York State. And I hear the saddest thing of all, teachers saying, frequently and aloud, I would never tell my child to be a teacher now. And that's so sad.
That is very sad.
I remember, we have 3 daughters, and I remember wanting each of them to be a teacher. And they didn't listen to me, and they have fine careers. And I have to tell you, though, now I'm relieved. And I never felt that way before. I think that's a very, very sad state of affairs. Teachers feel so under fire right now. They feel unappreciated. They feel demeaned. And they feel as though they're under a barrage of attack. And, I'm not exaggerating it at all. When I blog, when I write... You
blog a lot, don't you, on the Washington Post?
I do, on the Washington Post. I mean, there are times where the readership is just through the roof. And the letters that I get from teachers would break your heart. And, and I'm a tough principal. I'm not one of these, anything goes kinds of principals at all. But I see my staff now and how worried they are because I'm leaving. They don't need to be, because the person who's coming after me is wonderful. But as wonderful as he is, the way the system is, they feel very much... He's going to have
some degree of conform. It's so interesting because if we go back to that theory that you don't use your past, we're going to have everybody just get their stuff from what we're providing. And yet the teachers in New York State are going to be graded on the test results when the schools that they teach in are so unequal.
Yeah. Yes, in terms of resources and
Absolutely.
class sizes and
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. I was talking to one of my special education teachers today, and we now have even our special education students taking International Baccalaureate English, and she loves it. The experiences are so
What
rich.
does that mean?
International
Yeah.
Baccalaureate. It's similar to AP in that you
It's
can receive.
applied placement.
Yes, you can
AP.
receive. You can receive college credit, and it's
see.
an international organization.
I see.
And we're so proud of our kids doing it. And we were talking about the new Common Core English Regents, which looks like an AP exam. It's this long, difficult reading test. And she said, what's going to happen to my kids? Nobody's going to want them in their class anymore. Are we going to be pushed back to those old days of isolated special ed? These are the fears that are out there.
It's so interesting because that's the complaint about charter schools, that they cream.
Right.
So now we're going to have pressure to cream even more.
Within.
Yes.
Yeah, and within the schools themselves.
Yeah. Is it an individual class test results, or is it the total of the school?
It's for each individual teacher. It's their students' scores that then would determine 50% of their score.
And then you put them all together for the school?
It's a very complicated formula that no one understands and that most researchers really don't think is valid or reliable and has huge margins of errors. There's a wonderful teacher, Sherry Letterman. She teaches 4th grade in Great Neck, New York. She's a superstar. One year she was effective. Last year she was ineffective. Sherry doesn't, in terms of scores.
Yeah.
Her principal adores her, the parents adore her. She can't even understand why. What happened? Well, the kids changed. Nothing else really changed. And she presently she's actually suing, saying that her evaluation is arbitrary and capricious. And we'll see where it goes.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be. So there's been a long history of opposition to testing.
Yes.
Right. And this makes it even more acute.
Oh, yes. I mean, I think what's happened with opt-out, it's more than just opting out of this particular test. This is a movement of parents who are saying, we have had it with all of this stuff. We don't want our children tested for what really amounts to about 10 days of testing. I mean, there's parts during the day, but certainly it's disruptive to schoolwork for a good 2 weeks with ELA and math. We don't want them coming home stressed out because the tests are so difficult and they feel that they can't do them. They feel they can't complete them. We don't want their teachers evaluated by test scores. You know, parents get it. And we're tired of our kids coming home, 1st grade, volumes of homework, all kinds of Common Core worksheets. This is the only thing they have left.
Kindergarten too, no?
Kindergarten too. And this is the only thing they have left. They've written to the governor, they've written to the legislature, they've written to the regents, they went to forums. It really is an act of civil disobedience where they're saying that's it. And it was about 200,000 kids this year. It was a huge amount of
Yeah. And all over the country.
all over New York State especially, and then
200,000 in the
pockets.
state and in different parts of the
Yes,
country.
in Colorado there was
Yeah,
a big
yeah.
opt-out, parts of California, parts of Illinois.
Right.
It's growing.
So, with all the years of trying to improve education, do you have a plan?
Well, I mean, one of the reasons why I'm retiring early is I want to devote my full-time energy to pushing back on this stuff. I'm going to continue doing equity work. I've been doing that for a while with the International Baccalaureate, getting more kids who are economically disadvantaged to take IB courses. I've done some work with the Department of Justice on desegregation cases. And so I want to continue that very much so. Also, a project I've been working on called Schools of Opportunity, which looks at what is it that schools do instead of the test scores. But a lot of my time, most of my time, will be to continue writing, speaking out. I love Diane Ravitch. She's become a friend. I want to work with her closely and helping organize a pushback. You know, they say all good things must come to an end. Well, I'm an optimist. I think all bad things must come to an end, too.
So Diane has a great blog,
Yes.
And it's, what, do you know what it is? Diane do you know the
Gee, I think it's just Diane Ravitch.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
And you were on the Washington Post blog?
Yeah, Valerie Strauss is the answer sheet. Yes.
Yeah. So how can we tell people to look for it?
Well, the answer sheet is wonderful. Valerie Strauss does a great job following all of these stories, writing her own stories, and then having guest bloggers, of which I am one. And you just have to Google answer sheet, Washington Post. You'll see a wonderful story up today about the extra millions that Bill Gates is still giving to push the Common Core.
Well, I certainly hope that you're successful. When you said you wanted your daughters to be a teacher, I was just talking to my daughter about her daughter, my grandchild, who's just graduating from high school, saying, my daughter said, I think she likes being a teacher. And we were both saying how wonderful it was. So go to work, change the systems, and let's bring some sanity to this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we will. I think that we're making good ground, but for whatever reason, there's an awful lot of money on the other side. Nobody's quite sure why. Some of us are suspicious. And it's tough, but we have our free speech. And thank God we still have that.
Yes, and we really try to teach people that they've got to use that.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Carol Burris.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there are any people you'd like to hear and topics you'd like us to explore, please let me know. You can write to me at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016, or you can go to the website at cuny.tv and click on Contact Us. I look forward to hearing from you.